Boatworks today is sponsored by Total Boat and Alexial Yacht Coatings, as well as supported by the generosity from the beautiful folks over on Patreon. Thank you so much. So, welcome back everybody. I hope you're doing better than I am. My name is Andy with Boatworks today, and this week, doing a little bit of a sidestep because, well, as you can see, we're all sick. First started off, the girls came down with it about a week ago, and then I got it, and now Mama's got it. Now, before anybody starts drawing conclusions or making speculations, this is just a good old-fashioned cold, all right? Remember back in the day, it was just one of those things. You got sick, you felt like hell for about a week, and then you got over it. Those were the good old days. Different times now. So this week I had full intentions of taking another road trip. I was gonna go, east, go up towards like Ontonagon, in that kind of area of the upper peninsula of Michigan. But obviously, I didn't feel like going anywhere, and well, it's probably a good idea that I didn't. So what I am gonna do this week instead is there has been some updates as far as, or progress made as far as with this new shop build. Now the big thing that I've been waiting to get some answers back on is what the cost was going to be to have the utilities, meaning the electric and the natural gas, run up from the road up to the shop. Because right now, obviously, there's nothing here. The total run was going to be 600 feet. And before, when I was just kind of spitballing numbers, I was anticipating that this whole deal, to have both of those run up here, I mean, I was guessing it was going to be, probably around 10 grand. I had people say, be prepared for upwards of 30 grand or more, which that would have just completely pooched this project, to be perfectly honest. But I did finally get the concrete numbers back. Not concrete, you know what I mean. I mean the solid numbers back from Xcel Energy. And surprisingly enough, I thought they were very, very reasonable. They were about a quarter of what I was anticipating, or a third. So to have both of those, the natural gas and the electric, run up here was, at least their part, doing the trenching and running the lines and all that stuff, that was just under $4,000. So I thought that was pretty good. I mean, I was prepared to go, I was preparing myself for like 10 to 12. I was having nightmares about that, 30,000 or more. So luckily that only came in, but it came in, just under 4. So this is not the road, well, this is an access road, but basically the main road is, obviously down there, but basically the run is going to come up this road that I've been working. I've gotten this all cleared out and kind of leveled out again, but down that road up to here, and then the shop is up at the top of the hill. Now, what I'm a little bit concerned about, and maybe it's not a big deal, I mean, I'm sure, somebody watching this will know for sure. But, as part of the shop build, which I'm gonna be getting into a little bit more detail here in a minute, we're gonna have to have some pretty sizable trucks coming up here, namely concrete trucks. They can't come up the main drive, by the house, because it's a paved driveway. And my understanding is that these cement trucks, they can weigh upwards of, 25, 30,000 pounds. And I don't think an asphalt driveway is going to stand a shot in hell at being able to survive that. So, what I'm hoping is that the cement trucks are going to be able to make it up that little access road that I put in. It's a pretty steep grade. It's well compacted, but it's a very steep grade. And I don't know how steep cement trucks can go up. Getting one of those things stuck on that road would be a disaster. So, I mean, if anybody here, drive truck, work with cement, whatever, if kind of how steep, I'm still not feeling well. If you know how steep of a grade, those cement trucks can get up, please let me know, because that's something that's kind of keeping me up a little bit at night. But basically the plan is to have at least the electric, have that come up. I want to have that, at least the socket meter, mounted on the side of the building, kind of right in here, within the first probably like 8 feet, 5 to 8 feet or so on the side. And then the natural gas, I want to have kind of led around the back side, over on this side, on the far back wall, because I'm planning on having the boiler. We're going to have, it's going to be baseboard radiated heat, on the perimeter of the building. But I want the furnace or the boiler back in here. Now, something that I've found out here over the last couple of weeks as far as getting the utilities run up here is that is going to be a little bit of a process. And yeah, there's a couple of different ways that I can approach this. I think I've pretty much settled on which way I think is going to be the fastest way. But the short story is that basically you got to pull a permit, which that's no big deal. You know, fill out some paperwork and give them, you know, 10, 15 bucks. You got your permit. Then at that point, you need to have the socket meter installed, you know, where they put the little meter that tells you, you know, how much electricity you're using, right? So as far as mounting that, there's a couple different ways that I can approach that. Either one, I can install it myself, but then I have to, before I can, you know, have that approved, I need to have it inspected by the state, have that paperwork submitted from the state inspector over to Excel, and then at that point, once Excel has that approval, then they can come up and run it. The other way that I can approach this is that I can have, or I can try and find, and this is easier said than done, I can try and find an electrician, you know, a licensed electrician here in Michigan, have them do the install. You know, basically you're just mounting the socket meter and running a pipe down in the ground, and installing a ground wire. But have them install it, and then they can basically rubber stamp it. I mean, they can pre-approve it, you know, pre-approve the install to Excel, and you know, then Excel can come in and do their part before the state inspector actually, you know, takes an actual look at it. Now, this is a little bit of a game. I'm not going to call it a racket. I think it's just one of those things that is what it is. But the way that I'm understanding this is that if I were to come in and do the install, now I've got to wait until the inspector can come in and actually, you know, take a look at it and give it the stamp of approval. Now, the inspector only comes to this area like once a week, and I'm sure he's got a list a mile long. So the time that I would have to wait between, you know, when I actually make the request for him to come and look at the install versus when he would actually be able to physically come here and look at it, hell, I don't know. I mean, I could be looking at a couple months, you know, and that's just me sitting around with my thumb up my ass, just waiting. That's not good. Whereas with the other alternative, if I can find an electrician, I mean, this should only be about an hour, hour and a half install for them. I mean, this is something they do regularly. It shouldn't take them all that long. But if they can come in, do the install, they can pre-approve it, rubber stamp it, bypass the state inspector, and basically give Xcel Energy the okay to run it up. Now that's the route that I think is going to be the quickest way to get all this, to get this ball rolling. It's going to cost some money, but for me, time is money. I mean, if this shop isn't up and running by fall time, I'm pretty much screwed. So this, you know, if it's going to cost me $1,000, whatever the dollar amount may be. I mean, I even offered to grease the wheels a little bit. Nothing wrong with a little bribery if it gets the job done, right? So, but we'll see. So that's the direction I'm going. I want to try and get an electrician in here. But when I talked to everybody that I've talked to, I said, well, how's your schedule looking over the next, you know, couple of weeks? Everybody I've talked to has just laughed at me. So that's usually not a good sign. So hopefully that's not going to turn out to be too much of an issue. I don't think it's going to be quite honest. It's a small job. It's not like I'm asking anybody to come in and commit for, you know, 2 or 3 week job. I mean, it's literally an hour or so in and out. So hopefully it doesn't become too much of an issue. Now, one of the things that I'm really looking into here, and again, I suspect this is going to have to be something that's going to have to wait until next spring to actually get done. But a few weeks ago, I put out a video as far, you know, asking about, you know, asking you guys for suggestions on how to kind of manage the layout of the shop. Because just to recoup, or just to go over a few things real quick, the shop is 30 wide and 60 deep. Now, there is, as you can see, there is some structures that are built on the inside, and I think I'm going to keep those. I had that in my old shop, and it seemed to work out pretty well as far as getting vantage points and extra storage space. So I think I am going to keep that. But I still need to create more room, or at least more of a footprint room on this building. So what I think I want to do is on this side over here, basically I want to extend that roof out. This roof right now is a 512 pitch. I want to, ideally, what I would like to do is be able to come out 24 feet. I don't think I have the pitch, you know, I don't think I'm going to have the height to do that given the height of the sidewalls. But I think if my math is right, I'll be able to come out 20 feet out, and then I'm looking at about 32 or 36 deep. Now, this, as I mentioned, this pitch coming off this building here, this is a 512 pitch. Now, if I change that to a 412, you know, and extending out, if I come out 20 feet, that's still going to give me roughly nine-ish feet of ceiling height inside the finished space of that addition. And then what I'm intending to do is basically to have that bumped out area, that's just going to be a dedicated workspace, or the dedicated wood shop. So all my woodworking tools are going to be over on that side of the building, and you know, that way it opens up the bay inside the main shop area 100% just for doing boats and having boat related stuff, you know, out on the floor. And again, as you can imagine, I talked with a couple of the builders in the area here, asking them, you know, how their schedule is looking between now and when the snow is supposed to start flying here, which is, you know, usually late October. Again, I got laughed at. So basically, if I'm lucky, I'll be able to have the pad poured, but I think that's going to be about it. Everybody that I talked to said they've got 2, 3, or 4 houses already lined up in queue. They haven't even started them, and they need to get them done yet by this fall. So, you know, I'm the new kid on the block, you know, and this isn't gonna even hold a candle to a full house, you know, build. So I'm gonna be the low dude on the totem pole as far as priority for them. So that's just gonna make this winter, it's manageable, obviously, but certainly not ideal. So if I'm lucky, I'll be able to get that pad poured. I'm not holding my breath on that, but if I'm lucky, that'll get done. Honestly, I would rather be able to get that done enough, you know, so that it's just ready to go come springtime, for a couple of reasons. One, well, obviously just so that it's ready and I can, you know, already start making arrangements with builders to have that little bump out added on in the spring. But specifically, in springtime, you know, when we've got 4, 5, 6 feet of snow melting off, that access road that I showed you a minute ago, that's going to be soft. That is going to be impassable for a cement truck. So if we can get it done now, at least right now everything is dry, that ground is solid. They could make it, well, if they can make it up the grade, they're not going to sink in the road, put it that way. Come springtime, after the snow melts, I'm going to be looking at probably a month or 2 for that ground to shore up before it can really have anything, you know, that has some substantial weight on it coming up that road without really tearing it up. But in the meantime, whether or not the pad is able to get done yet this year or not, I can still get started on some clearing. Now, as you can see here, there's some pretty sizable oak trees that are going to have to come out here, and I'm going to be touching on this here in a minute. But you know, say like this oak right here, that's probably 18, 20-inch diameter. And looking further down, you know, there's a number of others that are quite a bit larger, and that's just on this side of the building. I'm going to want to keep at least a 15, 20-foot border, you know, away from the addition once that's added on, just so that I don't have limbs like if it's hanging over now. Just so I don't have limbs hanging over the roof, bugs get on there and sap and whatever, and you know, blowdowns. I want to have a nice kind of like a safety barrier away. Now, that's not so setting these trees aside right here as well. There's also some more over here. When you look at it, I mean, these are overhanging the roof. I'm not comfortable with that. So we've got some more oaks over here, some big ones further down, as well as a couple more along in the back. So as we all know, lumber prices are just absolutely insane right now. So my thought is, I mean, these are all good sized trees. These are the size that you could easily have milled up and turned into, well, between all of them that are going to be coming down, quite a bit of lumber. So my thought is, you know, obviously it's another one of those things I'm gonna have to go on a waiting list, but get a small wood mill. I mean you can spend as much or as little on a wood mill as you want, but for a little, you know, kind of a hobby type setup, you could get into it for $2,000-3,000, which, you know, it's still $2,000-3,000, but you know, when you compare that to they make mills that are $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, all of a sudden that's starting to sound pretty reasonable, right? But my thought, again, you know, we're on the side of the building, but my thought is behind this addition, you know, once that's in place, I'm still going to have roughly, you know, 25, 28 feet along this back that would be wide open. So my thought is, you know, as long as this is all going to be covered, you know, the roof line's going to, I'm looking to have the roof line extended basically the full length of the building. But then I could have the wood mill basically parked right here. It's not going to be a portable unit. Just basically you set it up and it stays here. But the wood mill can be right behind the wood shop area. And then, as far as getting the trees, or the logs, bolts, whatever you call them, I got to brush up my lingo so I can at least sound like I kind of know what I'm talking about. But I'll be able to come in with the tractor then, basically bring them around to the back of the building, down, around, and back, and then basically set them right on the bed for the sawmill. And then after everything is slabbed off, then I can just basically sticker them right next to the mill, and they can stay there and dry for the next year or so. I have no idea what kind of lumber I'd get out of there, but you know, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 oaks, and these are all red oaks. 9 or 10 where the trunks are at least 18-inch plus diameter, and I'll be able to get 4, maybe 5 sections, 8-foot or 9-foot sections off of each tree. These are all fairly straight, so we're talking about a lot of lumber. I mean, I'm not looking to sell it, but basically stockpile it for the most part. And after it's dried, then that can be used to basically finish off the interior in here. Now this, you know, finishing off this interior after it's insulated and heated and got all the lights and everything in, the finishing process, well, that's going to be a process. Because as I've mentioned before, this is going to be my forever shop. We're not moving again. This is where I'm going to basically get buried. So I'm going to spend the time and basically get this exactly the way that I want it. I've never been able to do that in my life yet, so now is going to be that time. But kind of keeping that general plan in mind, I think having the electric basically stubbed in on this corner of the building here, I think that's going to work out pretty well, because the addition part where all the woodworking tools are going to be, that's going to be the area where it's going to have the highest power draw. I mean, that's where all my 220 volt tools are going to be, and having the meter and the electrical panel basically right there on that corner, that's just going to be a very, very short run to basically wire the woodworking area. Now, as far as the main shop, I don't really have any 220 going in there at all. I'll put a few in there, but for the most part, that's all 110. Now, 110 versus 220 wire and all the breakers and the outlets and all the other stuff, the closer that I can keep the panel to where that high demand area is going to be, the less expensive it's going to be. So I think, like I said, I think having the electric coming on right there is going to be a perfect spot. And as far as the boiler, having that back in there, kind of tucked in the corner in a separate room. Again, it's just, it's going to be an enclosed area. It's going to keep the dust off, and I think that's going to work out pretty well. So as of right now, that's all the updates that I have as far as progress on the shop. So hopefully next week has a little bit more. If not, next week, hopefully I will be feeling better and I'll be able to take the road trip. Again, we're going to be going up to the east side of the UP. I don't have the areas memorized right now, but I know it's like Houghton, Hancock, Ontonagon area, and a few others. So taking a look up there, looking for used boats, and just kind of checking out the marinas. Again, I'm new to this area. I'm kind of curious to know what's around me. So with that said, I think I'm gonna button this up so I can go back and get some rest. So as always, I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Thank you in advance. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions on basically what I'm planning to do, if it sounds like if I'm overlooking something really obvious, let me know. I'd rather find out now than after that ball has already started rolling and it's going to cost me more time and money. So if you have any suggestions or whatever comments, leave those down below. And as always, thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. My brain's not working. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Oh, actually, I might not see you next week. I think we sold our house. We haven't signed the paperwork, but we have an offer that we're going to be signing today. Or in approving or agreeing to. So depending on what happens there, I don't know what's happening next week. So we may end up having to basically go back to the old house, get all of our crap out of there last minute, or not last minute, but just get all of our crap out of there, so it's kind of ready to change hands. So next week might be a little bit up in the air. I'm not sure. Folks over on Patreon, I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted. So with that said.
This has been a Boatworks Today production.